Last year during the Great Flood in Louisiana, I ended up being responsible for helping several of my colleagues with recovery efforts. And so I wanted to offer some things that I learned and hope that this will help some people in Houston as they deal with recovery of their colleagues. And this is, of course, not for professionals. If you're a Red Cross or whatever, you don't need to know this. But what will happen is, in a lot of cases, people from churches or businesses will start worrying about their colleagues and trying to help them. And so here's some things that you're going to see. And it actually takes place in 4 stages. And let's just talk about those real quickly. Rescue safety, there's some immediate needs, some short-term needs, and some long-term needs. The rescue and safety stuff isn't something that most people have to worry about. That's what the police officers, the Cajun Navy, and other people like that, the firemen, are there to help with. I'm assuming that at this point that's mostly been taken care of. Where you really begin to see where volunteers can help is with the immediate needs, and these are in the first couple days after people have been rescued. This is when you're trying to get people out of shelters. This is when you're going to have to find ways to communicate with people via phone. Facebook can be very helpful, and so on. What people are going to need is access to food, to clothing that fits. Last year I had one woman say, could just get some underwear for my husband. He's been wearing the same underwear for 3 days. So things like that, toiletries, financial support. So people just need to be able to have cash so they can buy the basic clothes or the shoes that they're going to need. Often shoes are going to be a big deal for people. Gift cards to places that are inexpensive where they can get just basic needs met, like food and so on, are also very helpful. So in the immediate few days, right, people are just going to need those basic care. I should mention medical support. Also, if they need pharmaceuticals or some sort of medicines, you'll need to help them with that. A lot of that's going to be taking place with shelters or at people's homes. But where I really begin to see the next really set of needs, and this is where people are going to be in the next few days, is with these short-term needs. This is when people are out of shelters, now they're returning back to their homes, the water's receded, and boy, are they walking into a mess. So this is for the next 2 weeks is really where people are going to be. As they return back to their home, the primary thing they need to do is clean their home. We call it mucking here. They're going to muck their home. There's going to be a lot of different tools that they're going to need. Basically, you can muck a house with about 3 different tools: a drywall saw to saw out the drywall in their house and then pull out all of the stuff that's behind there, insulation and so on. A pry bar to pull out cabinets. Anything that's wet basically has to go. A carpet knife, because the carpet's been saturated, you're going to rip that up, drag it out, throw it out to the street. They're going to need bleach and disinfectants just for sort of regular cleaning. Recommend mold armor for actually spraying on the house and the inside to protect against the growth of mold. That's better than actual bleach. We used a lot of Pine Sol for cleaning. They're going to need buckets, wheelbarrows. Mostly they're going to need people to help. If you can't help physically, one thing that is salvageable for a lot of people are their clothes. So what you need is somebody who can go over with some big bags and take their clothes, take them back to your home, wash all their clothes, dry all their clothes, get all the junk out of it, and then return it to them. That can be the sort of thing that you can do for people even if you can't do other kind of cleaning. What will happen is they're going to go in and muck their houses, take all the stuff out of their house, and then what you'll find is then they're going to have to find a way to store what's left. Now, there won't be a lot left, but people are going to need boxes, bins, and things like that. So anything like that that you can get a hold of are going to be really helpful. People will need dehumidifiers to help dehumidify their house. Fans, all those things can really help as they are sort of cleaning out their house. Most importantly, they're going to need manual labor. And what really works well is if you can put together a team of anywhere between 4 and 10 people to go help with people. The first thing they need to do is just throw all the stuff that's got wet out in the house in the front yard, and then start pulling out all the drywall, all the insulation, all the cabinets, and everything else. It's basically all got to go because it's all been wet and soaked. So if you put together a team of 10 people, you can sort of do a lot of that in a short period of time. So recognize, what we would do is put together teams, and we would send them to places. You'll need a volunteer coordinator to really help there. And then you're going to need basically somebody to function as a case manager for people. What you'll find is when people walk into their houses, most people will just freeze. They get completely overwhelmed by the scope of the disaster in front of them. They're sort of suffering through PTSD. And so what we found is that what we would do is send a person with a checklist and say, okay, have you done this? Have you called your insurance company? Have you called FEMA? Bring with you a list of resources and things that need to be done. Check those off. Make sure that you check in with those people. Tell them, okay, do this next, and so on. People aren't going to be able to do this by themselves. They get so overwhelmed. There are exceptions, of course, but most people just totally freeze up. So the more that you can do to really guide them to the resources, to whatever they need, the more that you'll be able to help. So all this is going to take place in the next couple of weeks. This is where people are really going to be. And then finally, once they've sort of gotten that taken care of, well, then the next year is going to be really hard. We've got people here who a year later just now getting back in their houses, and it's been a real struggle. They're going to need financial support from churches, especially if they didn't have flood insurance, or from whatever your organization is. The organization I work for just added an extra $1,000 into everybody's bank account. It was a really great gift to people. So if you can do that, one of the things that people are really going to need is honest contractors. There's going to be a lot of people who will just come into town and do really shoddy work. If you know good contractors and can get them there to help people, that's going to be really important. They're going to need work help, especially for people who maybe didn't have insurance and don't have access to a contractor. So a lot of manual labor, both as we talked about the cleaning and then helping to rebuild. Emotional, psychological support, really key. It took my colleagues months to sort of get there, and when these floods started happening in Houston and then started threatening Baton Rouge, I started checking in with people. How are you doing? And people will get stressed every time there's a storm out there. So just because they're sort of back to work doesn't mean that they're all right. Sometimes they're living in very difficult situations. They're living with family members or in-laws, and sometimes that can be really stressful. So pay attention to that. And mostly they're going to need patience. They're going to be dealing with insurance companies. They're going to be dealing with contractors. They're going to be dealing with the federal government. So realize that some of that's going to take place at work hours, and just be patient with them, help them, give them what they need to do. So those are some of the sort of the things that will happen in the next year. Based on sort of our experiences here, I hope that this is helpful and give you a sense of what to do next and what to expect with the people that you're working with. God bless you. I hope it works well, and I hope this is helpful.